Hello everyone! And today we're back into another tier list. And today we are ranking all of the Sweet Retreat Loomians. And we're going to be ranking them in a tier list from best, great, good, okay, and worse. There are only 10 of them because we only have the fully evolved ones. We don't have any of the pre-evolutions. If I were to place a couple of the pre-evolutions, I would put Odasho in good. And I would probably, that's probably the only one I would say. Totomochi would be okay. So if I were able to rank a couple of the pre-evolved ones, Totomochi would be okay, and Odasho would be in the good tier. But all the other Loomians are fully evolved, and let's talk about them all. The first one we're going to talk about is Mocho. Mocho's in the great tier. Mocho is a great tier Loomian. It hits extremely hard. It surprisingly has good coverage, which is odd, because it only has Ice Brawler. Yay, Ice Brawler! It can't hit your soul and your snack and Mutagon. Other than that, though, it can hit pretty much anything else in the game, except for water types. But that is what Deep Freeze is used for. Deep Freeze can hit those water types, which is awesome. And with its ability, you can actually be the fastest thing in the game. I think the ability is called Sugar Rush. Yeah, the Sugar Rush ability makes it so you outspeed everything in the game after you use a chocolate bar. Chocolate bar is the most prominent item to use, but you could also use Raidful Plushie for a defensive Mocho. You could also use a shell if you want to hit harder without setting up a piece of mind. There's a couple ways you can actually run as Mocho, but the only reason why it might not be the best Loomian in the update is because if you lose your chocolate bar, you are back at 66 speed for the rest of the battle, which is not terrible. It could be good for stuff that you could outspeed, but you really do need the Sugar Rush boost in order for it to be amazing. Despite that, though, when Mocho pops off, it pops off amazingly, and that's why it's in the great tier. Now we got Spreezy. Spreezy's in the good. Spreezy's bulky, which that's good. Having good bulk, especially on both sides, is pretty good. Having Poison Barbs help. And it's basically a better Florant. A Florant that's good! Unlike Florant, this thing can actually stall Loomians really well. It even has Life Drain to hit those pesky Earth types. So yeah, you can even hit Himber with this, which is awesome. Flazzo, it has a really weak ranged attack. So yeah, it doesn't really hit that hard. And also, if you want to run Talent Trade on it, you know, you're losing your ability to Talent Trade. Like, it's just not worth wasting your ability, Hard Candy. And since it has so many moves to run, it suffers from 4-move syndrome, meaning that it cannot run all of the moves that it needs to run. Because there are so many different moves you could run on Odasho, but you can only have 4 moves on your move slot. It's kind of the same problem with this pre-evolution as well, Odasho. It suffers from 4-move syndrome, and you don't know which moves are going to be the most useful until you actually be put within that situation. Despite that, though, Spreezy is a pretty good Sweet Retreat Loomian, and it's definitely the definition of good. Hawkenosh, I'm going to put that in the good tier as well. I know a lot of people rank Hawkenosh pretty low, but it's a pretty solid fire type with pretty solid bulk. Has a lot of coverage. I mean, has earth and toxic coverage, which is nice. It's one of the best bait users, which is awesome. And, you know, it's really good with the Is it Madcap? No, I think it's the ability where it increases damage on recoil moves, which is awesome. It makes it actually hit pretty hard. And since it's a pure fire, it's a very good typing defensively, which helps it out a lot. It can get rid of icicle traps, and it has very solid bulk on both sides. While it's not the flashiest Loomian on the surface, and a lot of people tend to scuff over, it always performs pretty well in battle. It might be the worst out of these 3 Loomians, but it's definitely in the good tier. It's definitely not an okay tier Loomian. It's definitely in the good. Let's talk about Your Snack. Your Snack's in the great. I mean, all it is probably the best Baffle user in the entire game. It's so tanky with the tank ability, and with Secret ability, it can absolutely drink through milkshakes, making it pretty unstoppable. Flaws are Teclips. Teclips is a problem, but even then, this thing hits pretty hard, has priority, has slapdown, can tank any hit, can baffle out. This thing pretty much do a bit of everything, and that's why Your Snack is in the great tier. It is in the low great tier, though, because like I said, Teclips is pretty common, so It is very tough to utilize. Nemore, that is going to be placed in the good tier. Nemore hits hard, but the problem is that offensively, light air is just not that good currently in the moment. Good, at least air types can hit plant types for neutral damage, which is nice. But El Iguana and range tanks in general can pretty much soak you. Venolin beats you. Gastroke beats you. El Iguana beats you. Other air types beat you. Even Terraclaw, which you can hit super effectively, beats you. There are just a lot of range tanks that can beat Nemore. And while this thing does hit pretty hard, its offensive typing just doesn't work out. It can heal, though. It does have perch, which means it can heal, though. And it has Hypnotize and also Peace of Mind. So, it is a good Loomian. Despite its offensive typing being complete garbage, it is still a very good Loomian. And that's why it's in the good tier. Sonoger. Okay. Overall, I would have to say that Sonoger might be the worst one out of the ones we've ranked so far. Because it doesn't have an ability that increases its damage. It's not really that bulky on the melee side. It's bulky on the range side, which is good. And it doesn't really have any good abilities to really utilize. And plus, Pure Spirit for Sonoger really doesn't work. It does have toxic coverage, which is nice. But it doesn't really have anything else outside of that. Except for one move. This Loomian would be in the OK tier if it wasn't for Spite. Spite automatically spikes it up to the good tier. But let me tell you, once other Loomians get Spite, this thing is dropping to OK. But since this is the only Loomian currently that has Spite, it's going in the good tier. Spite is an amazing move that pretty much chunks the meta, and I love it. That's why it's going in the good tier. But, like I said, once other stuff gets that move, once other Loomians get that move, Spite, this thing will drop to the OK tier very easily. Cirelli is in the great tier. And there's a couple reasons why Cirelli's in the great tier. I mean, I get it's an RNG-based Loomian, but you could definitely fully utilize it with dodge. And let's not even talk about Appetite Cosmere. You could surrogate this thing on the Cosmere, and then all of a sudden, you cannot beat it. So, yeah, this thing is very overpowered, mainly because of its ability. Its stats are kind of hit or miss, and its moves are too, but even then, Appetite as an ability hard carries Cirelli, and I even got sweeps with this thing. Yeah, it gets range tanks too. It just says a lot about Cirelli's potential. That's why it's in the great tier. Fishkarnia. Fishkarnia is going to be in the good tier. And it's not the greatest thing in the world, but Toxic Bounce, I think it's called Regift, is amazing. You could just swap in on any Loomian that has barbs or poison barbs, and swap in within the other side. This even works with Baffle and Poison, which is awesome. The fact that you could stun those is awesome. And while it does not hit hard whatsoever, it is pretty range bulky and can actually use, and is the only Loomian recycle, which is pretty good. It does have a lot going for it, despite it not doing the best in battles. Now, we get to probably the worst Sweet Retreat Loomian, Baneki. It's going in the OK tier, and it's going to be in the worst tier because it's the worst Loomian in Sweet Retreat. Earth Grass is interesting. It's an interesting typing. And with Noxious Weeds, it actually gives it just as many immunities as weaknesses. Which, while that is a positive, the weaknesses that it does have, oh my gosh, the weaknesses that it does have, it's weak to fire, it's weak to ice. Oh my gosh, you're quad weak to ice. It is bad. You're even weak to dark. Those are like 3 typings which can really hurt if you have a weakness for. And that's the reason why Baneki is down there. Plus, while it is the only ranged earth type, it doesn't hit hard enough. You have to get 2 magnifiers, and even just to be very threatening. And even then, that might not even work. You could also use the Stalneki set, but why would you use that when Spreezy exists, Stalfino exists, Wiki exists? Like, there are other Loomians that can utilize it better than Baneki, and that's why it's the worst Sweet Retreat Loomian. I'm just going to put it in there now, just so we don't have to waste our time on it. Baneki is the worst Sweet Retreat Loomian, sadly. Now, the last one is Sea Drake. Yes, easy great tier. Easy great tier all the way. A lot of people think that either Mocho or Your Snack is the best. I honestly think Sea Drake is the best for a lot of reasons. One, it has amazing coverage for a pure plant. I mean, having Ancient Water is awesome. The fact you can hit fire types with Hydro Slash is amazing. And the fact that you can hit Ancient types is pretty good as well. And while defensively, Sea Drake does pretty bad, it has just enough of a speed tier to be used well, and it hits really hard. And with its secret ability, it can actually do very good with Thorn Slam, and this can become a sweeper very fast. This is probably one of the hardest hitting Loomians in the update, which is insane. It's definitely one of the top Sweet Retreat Loomians. But is it the best out of these four? So, is Mocho the best Sweet Retreat Loomian? Your Snack, Cirelli, or Sea Drake? And if I were to give a top two, I would have to do Sea Drake and Mocho. Your Snack's good, but with a lot of Eclipses happening right now, and also Baffle just struggling right now, it does struggle a little bit. And Cirelli, it's basically the luck of the draw in order to really utilize it. But if I were to say the best out of Mocho or Sea Drake, I would honestly have to go with Sea Drake. And there's honestly one reason why you could do this. The one reason is once Mocho loses its chocolate bar, it is back to its 66 speed right afterwards. So if you use the chocolate bar at the wrong time, you're kind of in trouble. Mocho is not really useful for the rest of the battle. Sea Drake can always be useful, which that is why it is the best Sweet Retreat Loomian in this update. Although, I would not be shocked if Mocho is up in the best too. Like, Mocho's a really good Loomian. It definitely deserves a lot of hype. I hope you guys enjoyed the Sweet Retreat tier list, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!